Thank you so much, everyone. It's a real honor to be with you here today. And thank you for that beautiful introduction. I think once they introduced the British Prime Minister and he said, after an introduction like that, even I'm interested what I have to say. So very kind. And yeah, today we're going to be talking about the monks and the inner battle. And what we often do as monks is our career is to share spiritual wisdom with others. But before doing so, we always recite a prayer of gratitude. In order to grasp any kind of wisdom or knowledge, we have to have an open heart as well as open ears. So you can join me by folding your hands and closing your eyes. And as I chant this Sanskrit prayer, you can just think of someone in your own mind's eye who you're very grateful to, who's taught you something and assisted you along your journey of life, and offer a few moments of gratitude for what they've contributed to your journey. Om Ajnanatimmirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Ajnanatimmirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Ajnanatimmirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Thank you so much. People often ask me, what is it that made me enter into monastic life? I was a pretty normal kid, I think. I grew up in the suburbs of London, in Wembley, and grew up in I guess you could say, a semi-religious family. But I think the first thing which triggered my thoughts of life and deeper meaning was one day when I was at home watching Comic Relief, if any of you remember that program, where they'd do fundraising, and part of the show would always be a clip where they would show some suffering part of the world, either kids who are starving, or a natural disaster somewhere, or some war-torn place in the world. There'd always be a clip of suffering in the world. And as a kid, I remember sitting in front of the TV and looking at this suffering on the screen and thinking, there's something very unnatural about this. Suffering is the one thing that nobody wants, but the one thing that happens to everyone without exception. Why is it, I thought, that the one thing that nobody wants is the one thing that comes to everyone despite their resistance and despite their best efforts? As a 13-year-old, I began thinking about this, and it began a search for me. I began reading different spiritual books. I read Islamic literature, Christian literature, and of course, because I had grown up in the Hindu background, I also read Vedic, Sanskrit literature, and particularly the Bhagavad Gita. At the age of 15, the Bhagavad Gita became my fascination, and I began delving deeper and deeper into it. And I was thinking at that age what I would do with my life and what goals I would set for myself. And I remember one day coming into the monastery, into our temple in the beautiful countryside of Hertfordshire, and I asked one of the monks, I don't know, I said, I don't know what I'm going to do in the future. And he said something which stayed with me till today. He said, you have two choices. Either you can fill your life with things to show, or you can fill your life with stories to tell. He said, you can go for power, profit, possession, popularity, prestige. Or he said, you can go for adventure, excitement, discovery, exploration, enlightenment. That was paradigm shifting for me, because in my life, only this side had ever been taught to me, that life was about power, position, popularity, possession, profit, and that a successful life was that. But here was someone opening up a whole new world of opportunity for me. And so that took me along the journey. And after I graduated from university, I went to India. And in India, I found my spiritual calling. And at the age of 21, I decided to become a monk. And 25 years later, I continue that journey, still learning, still improving. Today, we're talking about monks and the inner battle. All of us, as we sit here in this moment, we're sitting with many others, but we're also sitting with our own inner thoughts. Perhaps the biggest battle in the world is not the battle with anything outside of ourselves, but is the battle which occurs within us on a moment-to-moment basis. I'll share with you a beautiful verse from the ancient scriptures related to suffering, because at the beginning of this talk, I mentioned suffering. And someone who, after his life, reflected back and asked himself the question, why did I suffer in my life? And after thinking about it, this was the mature conclusion he came to. And I'll say it in Sanskrit just so you get a little flavor of the language. Nayam jano me sukhadu kahetur na devatatma griha karma kalaha mana param karanama mananti samsara chakram parivartayadyat. He said, I looked back in my whole life and I asked myself, why did I suffer? He said, I thought I suffered because of other people. I was wrong. I thought I suffered because of astrology, the planets, the astrological configurations were against me. I was wrong. He said, I thought I suffered maybe because of karma. He said, I was wrong. He said, I suffered maybe, I thought, because of time, because in time everyone suffers. He said, I was wrong. Mana param karanam amananti. He said, the only one root cause of suffering in this world is my own mind. I suffered because of my own mindset and my mental state. He looked back in his life and he said, if I had spent time working on the inner world, then perhaps every other bit of chaos around me wouldn't have the same effect and impact on my consciousness. This is the great opportunity that everyone has in their life. 99.9% of the people in this world put the majority of their emphasis in life on the outside world, the external world, the surrounding environment. The spiritualist, they put the emphasis within, on the inner world, the closer inner territory that we have to navigate. And so today I'm going to share with you a little bit about what that inner battle is and how we can win that inner battle. Before I do that, I want to share a story with you. And it's the story of a young individual who wanted to join a monastery and become a monk. So he knocked on the door, and the abbot opened the door, and the young man said, "I'm here, sign me up. I'd like to become a monk." The abbot said, "Come in and sit down." So the young boy, he came in, and the abbot sat him down. And the abbot said, "Before you can join the monastery, you have to show us what you can do." So the abbot looked at him and he said, "Can you tell us one thing you're good at?" So the young boy was thinking, what will I share? Football, well, not that good. Studies, not that good. He looked at the abbot and he said, "I'm good at playing chess." So the abbot said, "Okay, so be it." So then he said, "Let's go into the next room." He came into the next room, and the abbot laid out a chessboard. And he said to the young boy, "Sit down." So the young boy sat at one end of the chessboard. And then the abbot called in one of the elderly monks. And he had the other elderly monk sit at the other side of the chessboard. The abbot looked at this young boy and he said, "Now you're going to play this game of chess. And if you win, you join the monastery. And if you lose, you don't." So he thought, fair enough. And just as they were about to start, the abbot said, "And one more thing. If you lose, your head gets chopped off. And if he loses," and he pointed to the old monk, "his head gets chopped off." In that moment, the young boy realized these stakes are higher than I imagined. But there's no turning back. So they began the chess game. And as they began the chess game, he began looking at the old monk, and the old monk looked at the young boy, and there was a few pearls of sweat dropping from their forehead. At one point in the game, the young boy realized, "I'm not doing well here. I really got to pull my socks up. This is really a matter of life and death." The gravity of what was going on was dawning on him, and as he was realizing it's life or death, he began really focusing his mind. He began really focusing his mind to just up his game. And as he did that, the whole game started changing. The old monk was losing pieces and the young boy was gaining the upper hand. And it came to the point where the young boy was clearly heading towards victory. And as he was heading towards victory, in one moment, he looked at the old monk opposite him. And what dawned in his mind was that this old monk is going to die. He's not just going to lose the chess game, he's going to lose his life. This young boy looked at this old monk and said, he's lived his whole life selflessly. He's lived his whole life in sacrifice. He's lived his whole life in service to divinity and the world. And now he's going to die. And in that moment, the young boy, he made a decision. And he made a decision to start playing the wrong moves. Gradually, the game turned around. And it got to the point where the old monk was about to win the game. And it got to the point where the old monk was about to move the piece to checkmate the boy. And in the corner of his eye, as the old monk was about to make that move, he saw the abbot raising his sword. And as the old monk was about to make the move to checkmate him, the abbot came down and he brought his sword down, but instead of hitting any of them, he brought his sword down and he smashed the chessboard. So they were both shocked, relieved that it wasn't their head. The abbot told the old monk to leave the room. The abbot took the chair opposite the young boy and he said, "Congratulations. You're qualified to enter the monastery." And the young boy said, "What was the qualification?" The abbot said to join the monastery and be a monk, you have to learn concentration, but you also have to learn compassion. In the beginning, when you were playing and you started upping your game, realizing that this is life or death, in that moment you learned concentration. And later on in the game, when you realize that more important than victory are your own values, then you learn compassion. And because you've learned concentration and compassion, you're qualified to be a monk. You're qualified for all success in your life. It's a very, very beautiful story. If we want to be successful in our life, we need a strong mind, but simultaneously a soft heart. People think that it's one or the other. In reality, most people in the world are struggling with both. We struggle with having a strong mind. Our mind is perpetually magnifying the irrelevant, minimizing what we should be appreciating. The distracted mind is constantly inventing stories which take us on a tangent. The mind is negative. The mind finds faults in others. And basically, the mind is not able to focus and concentrate on one thing. They say, in the beginning, we were nowhere. Then we came somewhere. Through technology, we're everywhere. And now we're constantly elsewhere. And therefore, practically, we're nowhere again. Perhaps that's the cycle of life. Our mind has become so hijacked in different ways that we're everywhere but constantly elsewhere and therefore really nowhere. In the world today, people don't know how to navigate their mind space, how to have that strong mind, that focus and that concentration. But simultaneously, people in the world don't know how to have a soft heart. People don't know how to emotionally connect with others. People haven't learned that beauty of unleashing the spirit of sacrifice and selflessness and service mood that is inherent within each one of us. Nowadays, people are more connected than ever before, but perhaps they're further apart than ever before. Woody Allen, he said, me and my wife, we drive in different cars. We have different friends. We eat at different times. And we have different jobs. We're doing everything we can to keep our relationship together. Nowadays, people can't live together. People don't know how to love. People have lost their softness of heart. And therefore, we're very impersonal. We're very impulsive. We're often very harsh with others and harsh with the environment around us. The young monk learned that the art of life is to have a strong mind and to have a soft heart. Is to be disciplined but devotional. Is to be as courageous as a soldier but as loving as a mother. And when you learn both of those aspects side by side, then anything is possible. The Bhagavad Gita is a beautiful book because the Bhagavad Gita is a manual which helps you to learn how to develop this strong mind and this soft heart. This ancient conversation took place 5,000 years ago on a battlefield. The battlefield is a very, very relevant scene because when you're on a battlefield, there's an immediate pressure that you have to deal with, but there are ultimate consequences that you're thinking about. On the battlefield, you have to know what to do now. But on the battlefield, you're also thinking about what lies beyond because death is staring you in the face. And so in this beautiful book, the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna teaches Arjuna how to deal with the intensity of the moment, but how to also know the ultimate journey that he's on beyond this life, beyond this world, beyond this chapter. And what Krishna teaches Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita is how to have a strong mind and how to have a soft heart. With regards to the mind, Krishna teaches Arjuna that we have to learn to disconnect from the mind. Arjuna says to Krishna that to control the mind is more difficult than controlling the wind. And so Krishna explains to Arjuna, the first step in controlling your mind is to understand that you're not your mind. You're not those thoughts. You're not those emotions. You're not those desires. You're not that negative inner critic which tells you you can't do it. But rather, those are just the stream of thoughts which are traveling through your consciousness. Krishna tells Arjuna, don't identify with the mind, but rather identify the mind. And the first beautiful insight is that if you want to have a strong mind, the first thing you have to learn to do is disconnect, disassociate, and distance yourself from your own mind, and rather than identifying with it, become an observer. Understand that the mind is a tool, that the mind is like a browser, which is allowing you to surf different ways of approaching the world. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna goes on to explain how simply having a strong mind won't allow you to reach your ultimate potential. We also must have a soft heart. And a soft heart means a heart which is overflowing with love, with compassion, with kindness, with sensitivity. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna introduces a practice called Bhakti Yoga. Yoga means the art of how to connect with divinity. And Bhakti means the art of love and devotion. So Bhakti Yoga literally means the yoga of love. One of the reasons why in the world we're living today, love is such a frustrated emotion is because people don't know how to love in the deepest way. What Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita is that when we direct our loving propensity towards divinity, then it's like a laser beam which is directed into a diamond. And when that laser beam is directed into the diamond, then that light is diffused in all directions. So when we awaken a loving connection with divinity, then we learn to see that divinity in everyone and everything in the world. And when we see that loving divinity within everything and everyone in the world, we're automatically kind, compassionate, considerate, and orientated in a mood of service towards everything around us. And in that, our heart softens, and our heart is infused with beautiful relationships. So this art of how to connect with everyone through connecting with divinity is taught by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. And so as monks, these are the two things we meditate on every single day. Have a strong mind, but also have a soft heart. And taking some time every day to go into our inner space, to disconnect from the world, and to contemplate these higher realities is something that everyone can do. What we share with people today is that everyone should become a member of the 5 a.m. club. Because before the world is moving, before the messages are coming into the phone and the notifications are showing up, before any of the chaos of this complex world begins to bombard us, we have to have dealt with the inner world. And when we've uplifted our inner world, then we become much more equipped to deal with this external world. And so, being a monk is not just an activity of some people a few unique people who take up that path. Everyone has an inner monk within them. Everyone has the monk mindset that they can incorporate into their daily functioning. And if we do take advantage of these ancient teachings and develop that monk mindset, then we can have the strong mind and the soft heart, which allows us to then go on this journey of life and achieve what we're really trying to achieve. And remember, the greatest achievement is not just to fill your life with things to show, but to fill your life with stories to tell. Because your life, ultimately, and the quality of it, is determined by the adventure, the excitement, the education, the exploration, the discovery, and the ultimate enlightenment of understanding who I am and why I'm here. Thank you very much.